Max Wilson, you got into the top 10. The shootout didn't quite go to plan, but you're right amongst the action here.
Yeah, the shootout, I just overshoot a little bit at hairpin and went a little bit wide and lost time there. But the car is pretty good, has been really consistently quick all over the weekend. So looking forward for the race. I think you have a good pace in the car.
It's a new car too, so that's got to be nice to be driving around in it.
That's it.
Best of luck out there.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Max Wilson, one of 12 drivers that are starting here for the first time in a V8 supercar race. 4 others have only raced here once. So there's a fair bit of learning has taken place over the early practice sessions, particularly drivers like Owen Kelly and Alex Davison, who are settling into relatively new cars. Owen with plenty of experience in V8 supercar racing, but not in the WPS car that he's driving for this and the next round. Todd Kelly with Darrell.
Well, Todd, I guess quickly you got to go and look after yourself, but off the front row here, not pole. But how do you see the run into these first turns? You're on the inside initially.
Yeah, well, if I don't get the jump at the start here, it's going to be pretty tough to pass. So really the only options are at the start or in the pit stop. Otherwise, I'm just going to have a real hard crack at it sometime during the race and just see how it goes.
I'm going to let you go.
Thank you, I'm in a hurry.
Where's he going?
He's busy, Bill, yeah. He's busy.
I have a feeling I know. And a lot of action going on here. Orcon Racing, Mark Winterbottom's car. Now, he did have a minor collision in the warm-up with Garth Tander. And I wonder if that has anything to do with that, Neil, or whether it's just one of those problems that crop up.
No doubt that there's a drama going on there. I understand that the two of them made contact in the pit lane in the warm-up lap for this race, and Kylie's down there on the spot. She might be able to shed some light on what's going on.
You summed it up there, Neil. Definitely a collision in pit lane. Garth Tander was coming in as Mark Winterbottom was heading out. There was a collision. Tander's car has suffered a puncture in the door, and the side skirt's been damaged as well, so they've taped that up. And as we've just seen, Winterbottom's car has been damaged as well. So it's begun even before the race has started.
Yes. You have no trouble finding ways of making contact with each other, and it's extending now to pit lane, and it looked like they may have done some geometry damage to the front left corner. Mark Larkham there getting all the information from his crew about what there was to see underneath the front left corner of the car. Hopefully it's not too bad, but it looks like he'll now have to start from pit lane, which means the whole field will have to rattle on through before Mark Winterbottom can take his place on the course, and you don't want to be behind 31 other cars on this racetrack. Not a lot of opportunity to pass.
It's been a struggle for that team. They're alongside, they were to be alongside each other on the grid. Winterbottom did feel, though, that he was starting to get it together on this circuit. 17th fastest after qualifying. Bargwanna was 9th fastest on the first day, but of course all kinds of variations there in setup and tyre use. The better reading was in the next practice session and qualifying, where he managed to get as high as 18th, but it's been hard to get there.
We had a shot up there before of the pole sitter Stephen Richards, and another fantastic performance for him as we look at the starting grid. Incidentally, Richo has launched his new website, stephenrichards.com.au, if you want to have a look at that. Lots of multimedia. Todd Kelly will start alongside him. Mark Scape in the brand new HRT car, row 2, together with championship leader Marcus Ambrose.
Rick Kelly and Garth Tander on row 3, and that'll be a threat to Marcus in the early stages. Lowndes and Murphy, a couple of other hard chargers, back on row 4. Max Wilson and Jason Bright making up the top 10, ahead of Ingle and Seaton, two very quick guys who were only fractions outside that top 10, weren't they?
It doesn't take much. It's an eye blink and you're outside the top 10. Warren Luff heads up the next group of cars. Simon Wills for the Dodo Internet Racing Team, and Paul Dumbrell, Brad Jones, 15 and 16. Brad made some changes to the car. It did leap up a bit. He was really struggling at one point in qualifying. Mark Winterbottom shows as the next man electronically on our grid, but he will start from pit lane. Then it's Bargs, Stephen Johnson and Paul Morris.
Paul Radicic, he has struggled this weekend by comparison to Max Wilson, but there is a bit of speed in that car. Of course, it's not the newer of the Triple Eights. That's Maxie's car. Paul has been 11th, 10th and then 21st in the various sessions. And further down the order on row 14, these guys are very much searching for setup across the sessions, and for various reasons have struggled through either hampered practice sessions or lack of experience, as in the case of Alex Davison, who with a great sense of humour has put a little L plate on his side screen.
The one-eyed Stephen Richards there, just aligning himself to a marker that the boys and the crew will have given him so that he knows that his front wheels are precisely where he wants them to be, to the millimetre. Marcus is doing the same thing with his crew. Just
okay, probably 30 odd seconds before a green flag, maybe a little more.
Just cueing him in as to where to place the car and what's likely to happen. Of course, the peripheral vision and the rearward vision in the cars is terrible, so you've got no idea really what's going on behind you. Certainly a long way back, and it's a curved shape, the starting grid, because it's they're basically starting on the exit of turn 7, and depending on how far back you are in the order, you're actually starting in the middle of a corner. And you saw that wide shot on the horizon there. Our radar is telling us that there could be some dodgy weather as we prepare for the start. Race 1 in Tassie.
We're set. Historic round. And racing, the V8s roar once again back at Simmons Plains. Murphy made a great start. Gained a position there. Kelly got away nicely too, but very clean. Oh, I spoke too soon. One of the Dodo racing cars is off.
Simon Wills. Very easy to find yourself mispositioned now. The next lot of action will happen down here. Can they all get through cleanly? Big chance for the Concertina nose to tail action down here.
Ambrose made a good start too.
Look at them all banging into one another as they get into 4. Lot of damage.
Debris on the circuit here in the hairpin, and lots of drivers have had to go straight over it.
Paul Morris's car and one of the Castrol cars with a lot of damage to the nose, it seemed. Stephen Richards is the leader. Marcus Ambrose has made effective use of the start, and he's up to 2nd. Brad Jones, we had a glimpse of there. I think he's made a few spots as well. End of lap 1, they roll on by pretty quickly here. Standing lap time for Stephen Richards, a 57.6. The order then to Marcus Ambrose, Todd Kelly in 3, Rick Kelly 4, Mark Scaife bogged down on the line, I noticed, then Garth Tander, Greg Murphy, Craig Lowndes, Russell Ingall has made ground, Glenn Seaton 10th, Jason Bright, Max Wilson, Brad Jones, and yes, it was Paul Morris with a lot of damage to the nose of the car. That will have happened in the braking area at turn 4, the hairpin, and it happens every time here because they end up all bunching up terribly under brakes in this area. We're looking at the exit here of the hairpin.
The tyres are starting to get a little hotter, and the drivers' heart rates are starting to get a little lower as we settle into this race now. The laps go by very quickly on this 2.41 kilometre circuit. Coming around for the 2nd completion, and Richards the leader, a 53.56 for the first full lap. And Morris has walked away.
He's given them a fair old belting one way or another. He may well have been helped too. It's not impossible that he could have been pushed from behind. He's whacked into the back of the Shell car. He's got a Castrol car in behind him. Was that Paul Dumbrell? I'm not 100% certain.
Yes, Davison was further down the grid, so pretty sure it was Paul.
Ambrose just lost a spot, and so Todd has moved up a spot. Stephen Richards showing good pace, hit a half-second margin at the end of the last lap. So Marcus, who looked a bit threatening, has maybe made a little mistake going into the hairpin, drops down to 3rd position. His car looked terrific for stability through turn 7. Rick Kelly is in 4th position, and Mark Scaife trying to recover from a tardy start. And in comes Marcus now. The pit window is open for the compulsory tyre stop, and Rick Kelly goes with him.
Okay, I'm in the pit.
Absolutely nose to tail at 40 kilometres per hour. Some aggravation between these two in the previous round in the Gold Coast. And the stewards have looked into various incidents there. They peel off. They're not worried about that now. It's behind them. They're on with the job of racing this weekend. There's a championship at stake for this man, Darryl.
Yes, Neil Ambrose in. Rick Kelly just watching the race here, and all the field has gone by. So they're going to be clear track. Rick Kelly's got the jump on Marcus Ambrose.
Gee, that Kmart racing crew has been very good on pit stops this year. Now, Stephen Richards, we understand, is going to come in a couple of laps from now. So the different strategies here are making this a fascinating race. Marcus Ambrose has lost an effective track position after making that early stop. Here's how Todd Kelly slipped through on the inside of Marcus at the hairpin.
He just simply got up the inside and outbraked him, it seemed. A little bit of damage to the front of Greg Murphy's car, but not a lot. It's just bent the front of the bonnet on the car. So Greg's in. We're understanding, as you said, that Stephen Richards will be in shortly. There'll be a flood of them any tick of the clock. Marcus obviously took the opportunity to grab his stop. Darryl.
Very little damage to the front of this car. Neil just trying to look at the air ducts. Nice quick stop for Murph. And was going to watch as he leaves pit lane here. It's going to be close as Rick Palley's gone past, but will he get in front of Marcus Ambrose? It looked like he might.
Well, that'll be a big gain. No, he won't. Marcus sneaks through just in front, but it does elevate Murph's position. He was 7th after the first lap, and Marcus had improved to 2nd. So Kmart have positioned themselves fairly well here. Murphy ready to attack, but his tyres, of course, are a little colder than that of the Stone Brothers car. Now, Richards and Todd Kelly.
Stop on the board, right guys, here he is, just what we did this morning.
Counselling the crew to be calm, think about it, do what you normally do. If you try and hurry these stops, it's a mess. Darryl.
Going to be a race now between Todd Kelly and Stephen Richards. Richards already out into pit lane. He's got the jump. Yep, he's let him in. He had also had a lock-up on the way into pit lane, Richo.
Well, these pit stops are very important, as we heard from the drivers.
There goes Rick. There goes Rick. So Rick Kelly is the race leader. These two slot back in. That is Stephen Richards and Todd Kelly slot in ahead of Marcus and Greg Murphy. So that pretty well settles the pattern now at the front of the field. It'll take a little time for tyre pressures and temperatures to normalise. Fastest lap time of the race so far of 52.9 for Rick Kelly.
Interesting that Mark Scaife, Craig Lowndes, Russell Ingall, Jason Bright, they're all still out there. They haven't made their stops yet, so who will come up with the big play? Here's Tander in the pits now. Kylie King.
Yes, Tander came in just ahead of a pack. Seaton was one of them. Obviously, the Orcon cars behind them. Very smooth stop by Tander. A little bit sluggish for Bargwanna.
Yes, the Orcon car is a lot further behind as they exit the pits. In fact, Max Wilson has come out in front of Jason Bargwanna there, and just slotting in front of him as well is Glenn Seaton.
Yeah, Glenn had to actually get out of the throttle then and find a gap between those two cars. When you're on the limiter and you're side by side in the slow lane, within this case Max Wilson, you've got to make a choice, and that choice is get out of the throttle, slot in sensibly. Mark Scaife will be in this lap. In fact, he might already be in now. Here he comes. He'll be very angry with himself about that start. He's had a couple of shockers lately.
Well, this is a big stop.
Positions in this field at the moment, Darryl.
Yes, Neil, as he comes in the team, just a tyre stop here. As we know, no fuel so far today at all. Tyres a little bit slow for the HRT team from Scaife as he leaves pit lane.
Well, he needed a stop to gain position. There's a lot of pressure on the crew in that one, having lost position at the start.
Rick Kelly's underscoring his pace at the moment. More damage here. This was that Paul Dumbrell incident that we spoke of before. We saw it on the Zinger replay. 52.8 Rick Kelly was the point I wanted to make. That car's good. He's driving well. The lap speed's excellent. The field's still shaking itself out. The computer shows Craig Lowndes the leader at the moment, yet to stop. Russell Ingall, Jason Bright. We feel that when it does sort itself out, that Rick Kelly's going to be the man. Oh, Glenn Seaton, big problem. Up into the escape area, and I think has actually stuck it in the kitty litter. Can he get reverse and get it out of there?
Well,
did the throttle jam, or did he just miss? Did he catch both pedals like perhaps Scaife did at the Gold Coast a couple of weeks ago? And that was a scary moment for Glenn. He wouldn't want to be another metre in there, because if you put all the wheels in that gravel, then you're there for the afternoon. He's away.
Yeah, he had one in the left rear.
Here's the replay. He may well have just locked her up, done it on his own on cold tyres. And he's had to use everything to pull it up. And I can just imagine what he's thinking at that point. I think he's just made perhaps a cold tyre error. We'll find out more about that one after the race, no doubt. Frustration for Glenn Seaton, who qualified pretty well, looked like he was on for a decent weekend.
Well, Rick Kelly here with a fair margin. Coming into the pits, Craig Lowndes and Russell Ingall, who were at the time 3rd and 4th.
What, Darryl?
Craig Lowndes in, as you're right, mentioned, Billy, this is going to be a race between SPR and FPR as far as these drivers go. But Neil, you imagine how many laps or how sideways these cars are going to be at the end of this race. It's a long time on a set of tyres.
I was about to make that very point as Russell now completes his service and rejoins, because even now, Darryl, looking at the times that we're seeing, lots of people showing signs of degrading tyres, hurting lap speed. Oh, that would have been close between the Valvoline car and Russell Ingall on the exit of turn 2.
That was Garth Tander, who's just made his stop. And here again is that incident I talked about. Cameron there, of course, after making the contact, locking up to try and keep it all gathered in. And just ahead of them, of course, is Warren's teammate, Stephen Johnson. There you go. And he's had all kinds of problems this weekend with an engine change, broken tail shaft. Now, Cameron looks like he's having a big go at Warren, coming into the hairpin now. They crossed, almost locked together, but Warren's been able to nudge ahead. Now Cameron comes in around the outside, looking to do the switch back here and get better drive out of the corner and perhaps pass him as they come down the back straight, but Luff is able to stay in front. So this battle goes on and on. Up the front, Jason Richards, Craig Baird, Dale Breed, the only cars not to have made their compulsory stop. And effectively the race leader, as Neil pointed out, is Rick Kelly in 4th position. The first of the drivers to have made his pit stop. Stephen Richards next, then Todd Kelly, Marcus Ambrose just ahead of Greg Murphy. That's another great and important battle. Murph has to get ahead of Ambrose if he's to keep his championship hopes alive. And then Mark Scaife and Garth Tander.
Cameron's really all over the back of Warren here at the moment. These guys are in a vigorous battle, believe it or not, for 20th and 21st. So these are going on up and down the field, and just shows the frustration. It looks like Cameron might be fractionally quicker at the moment, but there's not very much he can do about it, except maybe just upset him a little bit here and there. And that's what he's trying to do, just unsettle him, unseat him. A little bit of rear bumper contact.
Slowly peeling off that rear bumper with every lap. Now, Kylie King has some more information from Paul Morris, why he's standing in pit lane and not driving.
Well, he's basically told me he's the meat in the sandwich. Is that right?
Yeah, that was it, all right. Yeah. Not much left for the front, not much left for the rear.
Take us through it. It was obviously just caught in no man's land.
Yeah, I arrived there and it was a bit boxed up, boxed up in the hairpin, and I think Paul Dumbrell arrived there and used me for brakes, so that's about what happened.
She's pretty terminal by the looks of her.
Yeah, very disappointing.
Never mind.
Thanks.
And as a result of that, I think Paul made contact with a shell car, and at the time we called the fact that it's sometimes in that situation up at the hairpin that you can get a lot of help from your friends from behind, and that appears to be the case. And McConville continues to try and find a way round. Order is still Jason Richards from Craig Baird, but they've not yet taken their compulsory stop. Now the margins are tiny back to Rick Kelly. And once they effect their pit stop, which is a good 32-odd seconds, plus the actual time taken stationary to effect the service. So the transit time is about 32-odd seconds.
Kelly's in pretty good shape here. He has 3.2 seconds on Stephen Richards. And then there's a very small gap to Todd Kelly. As we look at that battle right now, Garth Tander, Russell Ingall are in fact, in terms of track position, a lot further down on these guys.
Probably have to say that given the potential for catastrophe here in the first couple of corners in the early part of this race, we probably got away relatively clean-skinned. There aren't that many cars that have been knocked around. A few people have been hurt in track position, though. One of them's Mark Scaife. He's in behind these guys at the moment. When he started so high, he's actually, well, there you go. He's battling away between Garth and Russell. Not where he would have imagined he could be after being on the second row.
So Tander picks up 8th position, Scaife back to 9th, Ingall 10th, Lowndes is the next car on the track. He's nearly 2 seconds behind them. Darrell.
The biggest thing down here right now, Billy, is we look at that Dodo car out in the paddock, as the temperature's dropped here a fair bit, and also behind me out towards the highway behind the pits, a lot of teams looking over their shoulders, a lot of weather out there. I don't know if it'll make it before the end of this race, but it's definitely cooled off.
Bad afternoon for the Dodo Racing Team Dynamic cars, because Dale Breed was parked off there, as you noted, Darrell, and earlier we saw that Simon Wills came in, and it sounded to me in the background as though that car had dropped onto 7 cylinders or maybe worse, and I noticed in the background the man that heads the engine program, Alan Draper, just waved his hands to say, no, shut it down, we'll have a look and see whether we can solve our problems later on. So not good for those guys from South Australia, and we have a lot of inquiry from people asking us what's happening in terms of the appeal from that team in regard to that testing incident earlier in the year, or the alleged testing incident, and there's still yet to be an outcome, but we understand that sometime in the very near future, probably within the next 7 days or thereabouts, there'll be a final finding in relation to the appeal hearing of that team.
Well, Scaife is struggling, isn't he? And we saw, as you were talking, Neil, the splits there between he and Ingle. Ingle is menacing, but Stephen Richards trying to find a way past Rick Kelly. Has to get to him first. The gap is 3.4 seconds.
Oh, Stevie just got a bit wide there. I tell you what, he was lucky to gather it up.
Todd will capitalise here.
Got him.
And almost Ambrose is joining the fray. It's going to be very interesting up to turn 1 and 2. They sort themselves out, though. Ambrose thinks better of it. He's got a championship on the line, so gaining a position on Stephen Richards at this stage is not as important as staying ahead of Greg Murphy.
Stephen was very lucky then to not end up off the road. He tippy-toed the car on the exit of turn 6, knowing that he was just right at the very limit. The guy with great speed at the moment continues to be Rick Kelly.
Well, can his brother hunt him down? The gap now is 4.2 seconds, with Richards having surrendered second place.
Marcus in the draft. He'll have a look down the inside here if he can do it, but no, Richo's a wake up and he makes a dive down the inside and makes contact. And Marcus will take advantage of this, no doubt about it. And through he goes.
Well,
They rub, and in comes Todd for a bit of action as well. And Richo to the back of this little gang.
I'll tell you what, Ambrose is in a great position here to secure the championship. I know it's early days. There are 2 races after this, but he, with Jason Bright languishing back in 15th position, Marcus Ambrose is looking very, very good.
A bit of, oh look, they're all making little blues here. Marcus outbreaks himself down at the hairpin, and there's some guards rubbing on tyres, and just a little bit of body damage here and there. It's an unsettled group, this group, scrambling for position at the moment.
Richards looks like he might have a bit of a problem in that area, but we'll have to wait and see on that. There's a little bit of smoke coming out there.
Yeah, the guards folded down there. You can see quite conclusively on the front right tyre.
The only driver out there, well, Rick Kelly's now past Craig Baird, who has yet to make his pit stop. So that's how well Rick's going. He's put a lap driver in there as a, well, actually not a lap driver, but he's put a brake on Baird. And Jason Richards, though, still to make a stop, still leading the race, but Kelly's not far behind him.
Here's a replay at turn 6. Richo had a look down the inside, got well up there, but just ran a little bit wider, and he made contact with Todd, so that gave an incentive to Marcus to go through at turn 7. They rub, and then, of course, Todd's invited back into the party as well. So, Richo got a long way down the inside. In fact, he was well alongside. In fact, probably almost inched away from him, but they just made contact on the exit of the corner. But they all continue to fight another day, and there's just little telltale puffs coming from Stevens' car, where the guard, you can see the front right guard's folded down on the tyre. Let's hope that it's not piercing that tyre, damaging the Dunlop control tyre in any way.
And Jason Richards and the man just behind him there, Craig Baird, the 2 Kiwis, their teams are gambling on waiting until the rain to make their first and only stop. Well, I stand corrected now because Craig Baird has just peeled off into the pits. But the word is that Jason Richards is staying out there, hoping that it rains and that they'll only have to make 1 stop. Rick Kelly is the race leader.
They can't play that game for much longer, though, because the pit window closes on lap 29. There's John Matthews from Tasman Motorsport. Wally Story, their engineer, he was gambling. He was trying to play an old farmer's game, sort of hunching on the weather, and thought, we've got track position. If we can hold out and it does rain and we've only got to put wets on, we hold our position the same as everybody else. And it's a gambler's move. If it works well for you, you're in good shape because you've only done 1 pit stop to everybody else's 2 stops. But the rain may not get here early enough to protect them. Certainly not the case for Craig Baird. They've had to take the stop.
We've had spots on the lenses of a couple of cameras around here, but it looks like Rick Kelly's in great shape, Darryl.
Craig Baird, Billy, has taken a huge punt. It's still only a couple of spits down here, and he's gone out with wet weather tyres, taking a big risk.
It's a big risk.
Well, you better hope that rain hurries. Kylie.
Change in strategy for Tasman Motorsport. They had regular tyres ready to go. The slicks, at the last minute, they've changed their mind. So in that last minute, literally, they've got the wets on and ready to go. The gamble perhaps paying off for them. They were sticking by while the pit lane window was open. They had to make a decision and they've gone for it.
Well, tell you what, it's not a bad one. If you're down the field at all and you didn't have a car, I mean, I was looking at their dry lap times and they were down about 6, maybe even 7/10 of a lap on, say, Marcus, who was closing in on the back of Jason at the time. it's a great gamble. You know, it's an all or nothing gamble. If you get it wrong and it dries out and you torch those things in a few laps, you go, well, look, we had a go. If you get it right, the upside is really good.
Well, they're effectively persisting with the strategy, aren't they? Even though the pit window hasn't helped them, they're going on with it.
What
so
they
that's
have to be very careful of, Billy, is that unless it rains pretty substantially, pretty quickly, wets on a dry track, even 2 laps around here, they die.
Yeah.
They hate it. They're much softer compound rubber. The square edge of the blocks rounds off very quickly. They go molten. But I reckon, I tell you what, there's a lot of rain lurking around out there at the moment.
It's
and so they've effectively done 1 stop to the others 2, and that'll put Baird and Richards in good shape, and then they're on the right tyre at the right time.
Rick Kelly's lead over Marcus Ambrose is just over 5 seconds. But there's that rain. That's where it's coming from. I'm pretty sure if we do get the big dump, it'll be that patch of cloud that you saw there. And then we have Todd Kelly, Stephen Richards, Greg Murphy, Garth Tander, Russell Ingall, Craig Lowndes, Mark Scaife and Paul Radisich. That's your top 10. And then we have, and here's some rain that the wipers are on in some cases. How heavy? Well, we see some of the crowd ducking for cover as well, so that's another indicator.
I'm hearing lots of reports on the radio that teams are assuring their drivers that it's a passing shower. So if they're looking at the radar sweep, they'll see that there may be some fine weather behind it. But the thing about weather is that you just don't know exactly for how long and how much, and very difficult if the track reaches a point where...
Okay, mate, there's a few guys going to try it out. We'll see what their times are like, but it's still too dry for wets at this stage.
That's the voice of Matty Nilsson from Kmart. Wet's going on Max Wilson's cars, and Matty's saying, Teko's saying, look, it's still too dry for wets. And he's right. Technically, he's right, but it's an interesting race the way this is unfolding.
Well, it's 40 seconds approximately for a pit stop, 32 plus the actual stoppage time, so then it's up to the crews, but we, you know, average out of 40 seconds if they do everything reasonably well. So
it's now been long enough out there on a dry-ish track that the wets will be fretting if it doesn't really dump in the very near future. Certainly up to the northwest, it looks as though it's going to get pretty wet.
But they may have lost more position than
Owen
they can
Kelly
gain.
has gone off at turn 4, loops around and continues, and that'll just be a lack of grip when he needed it most under brakes at turn 4.
He's had a few problems at the hairpin this weekend, Owen, but of course dialing himself into the team, the car, and the top level of V8 supercar racing. Darryl.
Like you said, Cromley, earlier the rain is coming down here now a little bit more, but it's still pretty dry here in the pit lane. But Craig Baird, like you said, more laps he does out there, the gain that he was going to get, he's losing now in lap time compared to the guys on slicks.
Yeah, and you can see already that those that are on slicks are still maintaining a reasonable pace. It's clipped, it's back from what you'd ideally like, but see the wets are dying. Look at Bairdo, he's got no pace at all. And the other thing that happens is it begins to hurt the case of the tyre. Now Glenn's gambling. He's gone with wets.
Well, if the rain persists, then it's these guys who are in better shape. But this is their second stop, not their first.
Fascinating little race, though, the way that it's all unfolding. Lots of people playing different games, not purely about absolute pace. If it was judged on absolute pace, then Rick Kelly was certainly the man because he was doing a great job in dry conditions. He's still at the top of the pop charts at the moment with a 4.6-second lead.
Well, it's a bit of a puzzle, isn't it? Because even though only 1.23 seconds covered the field after qualifying, here we see another look at Owen Kelly and that little mishap there.
He had too much closing pace on the back of Jason Richards and ultimately had to move to the right, and in doing so puts the wheel onto the white paint and then the dirt and grass, and then Paul Wheel, speaking of wheels, nails the big pond sign.
Oh,
nails Steve Ellery
Steve.
While he's in the process. He got away with it. How did he end up staying on the track? The styrene sign not looking too flash, though.
Wasn't much Steve could have done about that either. Up to turn 1. Oh, look at this. Scaife and Ingall bashing each other senseless here. Scaife gets touched more than once too often. He's into the dirt. Ingall continues. Well, that was for 8th position, would you believe?
Amazing, and that continues. You can hear Rob Starr in the background. We're going to be buried, mate. That continues that friction between those two. They were in a vigorous battle on the run to turns 1 and 2, and ultimately, as Jeff Grech looks on, it's the worse for wear for Mark Scaife, buried in the gravel. And I'm hearing that here's the Zinger replay, see if we can see a bit more. A little bit of contact once, twice. side by side. And then Scafie overshoots when he gets down there, and then Russell makes contact again and poof, into the sand.
Well, this is a brand new car, and it was blitzing them in testing at Winton recently. They were so happy with it, but it doesn't seem to matter what they do. The Holden Racing team, or Scaife in particular, they're just having a nightmarish season. There he is, and there's his teammate, Todd Kelly, in great shape, as a matter of fact, pressuring Ambrose for second place.
The Gamblers have not got away with it, really. The wet was a great try on, but it didn't quite work out. If this race had been longer or the dump had been bigger, it might have been okay. v8supercars.com.au, the V8 Supercar website, with all that you need to know about the drivers, the teams, the way in which the series works, and all the news. Now, I've done the points for where we're at after this race in terms of the two key men. Here's a replay between Bargwanna and Seaton, and it looks like there's going to be a bit of aggravation here. Barks has been complaining about a lack of power with this car, and now he's got a lack of grip as well. Marcus will end up with 1,918 points if he stays in current P2, and Jason Bright, who at the moment is down in 11th, will end up with 1,732. So the margin, the gap, 186 points. So Marcus just inching closer.
I mentioned that support category, the V8 Brutes, but all the others will be in action on Sunday, November 21 for Trackside. We're on the last lap here, though, of the V8 Supercar Championship Series round at Symmons Plains. The grand finale may be at Eastern Creek, but Marcus Ambrose may wrap up the championship here right now. He's under pressure from Todd Kelly. Jason Bright will be hoping that Todd picks up those valuable points. Rick Kelly further up the track is looking so good. His lead down to 3.4 seconds, but that's okay.
Brighty's moved up another spot.
Oh, it's Murphy!
Now round, so the margin's now 184 points because Brighty's moved up a spot, and he's got 44 points so far in this race.
Well done, Rico. Great drive,
Rick Kelly takes the win. Race one.
Good job. Second flag wasn't out.
Very significant result here. Rick Kelly takes the victory. Marcus Ambrose second. Kelly, Richards, Tander, Murphy. Now Ingle just behind Craig Lowndes.
Out of a few hairy moments. Well done.
Very importantly for Murphy, he slotted down the order after that spin. He is now at very long odds to stay in front of this bloke and keep the championship alive. Jason Bright may still be able to do it, but disappointment there for Greg Murphy. He is really flying in the face of a cyclone here to stay alive in the championship. Stephen Richards pole position, but dropped to fourth. Here's Craig Lowndes and Greg Murphy. Squeezing. Murphy gets on the gas, sends it into a spin, and Ingle narrowly avoids him. And well, this famous hairpin, the debris sitting on the outside of the line, says it all, really. And Spider-Man on this occasion, not so lucky, as Murphy gets tangled in his own web. His teammate, in the meantime, after a horrendous few weeks since the Lexmark Indy 300, has responded to all that drama in the best way a driver can, and that's by taking maximum points in the first of the three races here this weekend. Great composure from Rick Kelly. He's had to suck it up, all the criticism, all the drama, but he's come out and raced beautifully here from fifth position on the grid.
This is Dad John Kelly and Simon McNamara there from Holden, congratulating him. Great job. 2-second margin back to Marcus Ambrose, and then Todd Kelly, Stephen Richards, Garth Tander, Craig Lowndes, Russell Ingle, David Bernard, Paul Radisich and Jason Bright. And for Marcus Ambrose, just a little bit closer to that potential second in a row championship for him, because the thing that really mattered was the margin back to Jason Bright. Greg Murphy, Brad Jones, Stephen Johnson, Steve Ellery, Cam McConville, Warren Luff, John Bauer, Paul Wheel, Mark Winterbottom. Bad start to the day for him with all that drama in pit lane with Garth. And then Traddy, Bargwanna, Kelly, Dumbrell, Richards. Big gamble for those guys on the wets. It could have paid off. That one was in the lap of the gods. Max Wilson, Craig Baird, Glenn Seaton and Mark Scaife finishing that one in the kitty litter. Kylie.
Rick Kelly, you had all the drama at the last round. Well, you've really come out and showed them this time.
Yeah, the team was definitely keen to get out there, and I think the pit stop showed. Towards the end there, we were a little bit nervous with the rain, obviously, because we had a reasonable gap, but the pit stop pulled it off for us, definitely, so thanks a lot to the guys.
What is it with this team? You always seem to do well in those pit stops.
Yeah, they certainly do. I don't know, they're just a great bunch of blokes that work well together and do a great job.
Personally for you, after all the controversy of the Gold Coast, to come out and win this first race straight off the bat, that must feel good. What goes through your mind?
Yeah, well, to be honest, Gold Coast was probably blown out of proportion a little bit. I definitely made some huge mistakes there, but it's only one round of the championship. You know, we won Bathurst before, and we've won a race here and a couple of others. So I think we're going okay. Just need to steer clear of hitting people for sure.
Good luck in the next race.
Thank you.